My heart raced as I saved a billionaire from a snowstorm. Now our lives are forever changed. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was electric, the storm wailing like a banshee. The snow had turned the world into a white blur. I could barely see 2 feet in front of me, but I kept pushing forward, fighting against the blizzard. My breaths came in frantic gasps, hope clinging to my fraying courage. Then, through the whirling flakes, I saw him. A figure sprawled in the snow, struggling. I rushed toward him, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The moment I knelt beside him, everything shifted. He was cold, shivering, his breath shallow and uneven. His shirt was soaked, a black jacket discarded nearby, and the expensive watch on his wrist glinted eerily in the swirling chaos. He looked up at me, confusion in his eyes. I recognized him, the billionaire from the headlines. I didn't care about his money. Just saving him felt like a personal mission against the storm. "Stay with me," I shouted, the wind ripping the words from my lips. Panic echoed in my chest. Would I be too late? My hands trembled as I pulled my scarf off and wrapped it around him, pressing my palms against his icy skin. The world around us felt strange, unreal. How could someone so powerful be lying here, helpless in the snow? The storm roared on, an angry beast trying to swallow us whole. He winced, his eyes narrowing as the cold seeped deeper. "Who are you?" he croaked. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of my own doubts. I was just a nobody, a waitress barely making ends meet. But in that moment, I was his only chance. The snow fell heavier, quieting everything around us. It was as if the world paused, shocked by the contrast of power versus vulnerability. My heart beat loud in my ears, drowning out the chaos, and I couldn't tell if the cold or fear made me shiver more. Then, just as I felt his warmth starting to return, I heard the distant sound of sirens. Relief flooded through me. We would be okay. But as I glanced back at him, something in his gaze changed, something dark and full of secrets flashed beneath the surface. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Before I could dwell on it, the reality slugged me. I saved a billionaire. But what did that mean for my life? What unknowns lurked behind those haunted eyes? The sirens grew louder, drawing near, but the silence between us felt so heavy with unspoken words. I knew this moment would change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The light from the approaching ambulance broke through the swirling snow, illuminating the scene in a surreal glow. I cradled his head in my lap, feeling the warmth of his breath mix with the chill in the air. I wanted to believe everything would be all right, but as I looked into his eyes, the shadows lurking there stole my breath away. Something unnameable flickered behind his gratitude, a hint of something darker that made my heart race once more, not from fear, but from a haunting curiosity I couldn't shake. The paramedics arrived, a whirlwind of motion, voices cutting through the storm, pulling me from my thoughts. They worked quickly, taking charge, but as they lifted him onto the stretcher, his hand brushed against mine. It was a fleeting touch, a whispered promise, but it sent a shiver down my spine. It felt significant somehow, weighted with all the uncertainty of our shared moment. "Is he going to be okay?" I asked, my voice soft but tinged with urgency. One of the paramedics glanced up at me, assessing. "We'll do everything we can." I followed as they rushed him away, my feet slipping on the icy ground. A sense of loss enveloped me. He had been this anchor in the chaos, and now, he was being whisked away. All the noise, the shouting, and the blaring sirens faded into the background as I lost sight of him, my heart straining against the unknown. Days turned into a blur as I replayed that moment over and over. News headlines exploded, covering the billionaire's narrow escape from death, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I wished for a piece of that fame, if only to know he was safe. I continued my routine at the diner, pouring coffee, taking orders, but each interaction felt hollow. My co-workers noticed something was off. They shot each other concerned glances as I navigated the mundane world around me. Then, one Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. My pulse quickened as I answered. "Is this Amy?" A familiar voice crackled through the line. "Mr. Collins?" I gasped, recognizing his voice instantly despite the rasp. I wanted to thank you," he said, each word heavy, layered with meaning. "For saving me. I owe you more than I can ever repay." Just don't mention it," I stammered, caught between delight and dread. "I was just doing what anyone would." "No, Amy. You did more than anyone would." His voice softened. "Can we meet? I need to talk to you face to face." My heart leaped at the request. The hope flickered, but the weight of my ordinary life pressed down on me. I wasn't ready for the complications his world could bring. "Sure," I finally replied, steeling myself against the myriad of questions I felt swirling about like the snow in that fateful storm that we agreed to meet at a coffee shop that weekend. The days leading up to it were a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Would he reveal the secrets behind those haunted eyes? Was he just a man desperate to express gratitude, or was there something more beneath the surface? When I arrived at the cafe, the warm aroma of vanilla and coffee greeted me, wrapping me in comfort as I awaited his arrival. My heart raced with every passing moment. As the minutes ticked by, a sense of anticipation built within me. And then, he walked in. He was dressed in a sharp navy coat, his presence commanding even in an ordinary coffee shop. The moment our eyes met across the room, a jolt of recognition shot through me. It felt like the world around us faded into the background, but the warmth of the cafe couldn't chase away the cold tendrils of uncertainty curling around my heart. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly, sliding into the chair in front of me. I noticed the way his hands fidgeted on the table, a stark contrast to the poised billionaire I had seen in photos. "I just wanted to know you were okay," I admitted, my heart racing. He leaned forward, and for a moment, I thought I saw the flicker of vulnerability beneath his facade. "It's more than that." At that instant, the atmosphere shifted, and the trembling tension crackled between us. "There is something you should know about my life," he continued, searching my eyes with a depth that threatened to unravel me. But before he could reveal his truth, the door swung open, and a man rushed in, his eyes wild with urgency. "Call off the interview," he shouted, heading straight for the table. "They're here." My breath hitched as I turned back to him, confusion swirling. What does he mean? The billionaire's expression darkened, and a shadow passed across his face. "I wasn't ready for you to know." In that moment, the reality of what lay beyond our encounter slammed down upon me, and I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The storm was far from over, a new tempest loomed on the horizon, and I was about to be caught in its eye. The clamor of the cafe faded into an eerie silence as I processed the panic radiating from the man who had burst through the door. Time felt suspended, and the weight of 1,000 unasked questions hung heavily in the air between us. "Call off the interview." "What interview?" I asked, my voice trembling as I searched the billionaire's face for answers. The moment we shared just seconds ago now felt like a fragile bubble ready to burst. "I need you to trust me," he breathed, tension tightening his jaw. "There are things I can't explain right now, not here. Just please, let us go." Before I could even respond, he stood and took my hand, leading me out of the cafe as the man who had interrupted us watched us go, panic lighting up his features. The street outside was bustling, indifferent to the turmoil that had just invaded our lives, but I felt the chill in the air seep deeper into my bones. "Where are we going?" I managed to stammer, glancing up at him. His grip was firm, yet a hint of fear shadowed his eyes, making me wonder if he was trying to protect me or himself. "I have a place nearby," he said, his voice steady despite the urgency of the moment. "I can explain everything there." As we navigated through the snow-dusted streets, I couldn't shake the sensation that I had crossed a threshold into a new world, the ordinary life I had known now feeling far behind me. We arrived at a modest brick building that contrasted sharply with the opulence I had expected. The warmth inside enveloped us like a blanket, but the unease hanging between us was palpable. He led me into a small, softly lit room furnished with simple yet elegant decor. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled to the brim, and a flickering fireplace cast a cozy glow. Yet, there was a sense of isolation, as if this place was part of a carefully curated facade that concealed something deeper. "Sit," he said, motioning to a plush armchair. I hesitated for a moment before taking a seat, feeling exposed under his steady gaze. "I owe you an explanation," he began, his voice calm but laced with fear. "The man who interrupted us, he's from the press. They've been relentless since the accident, trying to dig into my life. But there are things they can't know, not yet." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my heart pounding. "What could be so important that you couldn't tell me before?" He stood in front of me, wringing his hands, his expression stricken. "I've been in the public eye for years, and you have no idea how damaging that can be, both for me and for those I care about. My family has secrets that stretch back generations, things I've spent my whole life trying to escape." "What kind of secrets?" I pressed, leaning forward, drawn in by the rawness of his distress. He paused, his gaze drifting to the fireplace as if searching for strength. "Secrets that involve power and danger. When I was in that storm, it wasn't just an accident. Someone wanted me to die that day." A chill coursed through me, the gravity of his words hanging heavy. "But why?" "Because that's how my world operates. Behind closed doors, deals are made, and lives are manipulated. There are those who would do anything to bury the very existence of people like me, the ones who threaten their status." My mind reeled. The billionaire I had saved wasn't just a man, he was a target, ensnared in a deadly game that I had unwittingly stepped into. "What does this mean for me? For us?" He drew closer, desperation etched on his face. "It means you're in danger too, Amy. And I can't afford to let anything happen to you." Just then, there was a loud bang against the door, causing both of us to jump. My heart raced as I looked up at him, fear mingling with the dread pooling in my stomach. "Stay here," he instructed, his voice low but intense. He moved toward the door, and I could see the muscles in his back tense as he positioned himself protectively in front of it. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed outside, and my pulse roared in my ears. "Mr. Collins. Open up. We need to talk." A voice shouted. "What are we going to do?" I whispered, feeling a sense of panic rising in my throat. "We need to be ready. Whatever happens, don't let them take you," he replied, determination flooding his tone. Before I could respond, the door splintered open, and chaos erupted. It was a blur of shouting voices and men in dark suits flooding into the room. I clung to the chair, my heart racing, as I was struck by the understanding that the storm was far from over. An ominous whirlwind was closing in around us, and the truth was as icy and relentless as the snow that had brought us together in the first place. The room exploded with tension as three men stormed in, their eyes scanning the space with all the cool detachment of seasoned predators. For a moment, I was frozen, the shock riveted into my bones. The billionaire, my billionaire, was he really at the center of something so dangerous? What had I gotten myself into by simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time? "Get out of my way, Collins," the tall man at the front barked, a sneer twisting his lips. "We're not here to negotiate. You know this is bigger than you." The billionaire's jaw tightened, his stance unwavering. "You don't get to burst in here and dictate terms. Whatever game you think you're playing, I'm out." "Out?" The sneering man laughed, an edge of menace layered onto his mirth. "You think you can just walk away? You're in too deep, and you know it. We can't let you jeopardize everything we've built. Just as I felt the weight of impending doom loom over us, a flicker of light ignited in my heart. I had no idea who these men were or what they wanted from him, but I sensed something raw, a chance at defiance. Perhaps there was a path here that was yet to be traveled. Just stop. I blurted before I could second-guess myself. All eyes turned to me, surprise etched across the faces of the men in suits and rage illuminated in the billionaire's. "Stay out of this, Amy," he warned, but I could see the gratitude lurking beneath the surface, like a candle fighting against the wind. No. If he wants out of this, then he should be allowed to go. You can't intimidate him into submission. I felt the adrenaline kicking in as I squared my shoulders. The words echoed in my mind, a battle cry kindled amidst confusion. You've got no right to terrify anyone. The room seemed to freeze, tension thick like fog. Surprise shifted to amusement, and the sneer on the man's face morphed into a wicked grin. "Ah, how cute. The little damsel thinks she can play hero," he mocked, turning back to Collins. "You think she'll save you? You're powerless in this game, Collins. And so is she, whether she knows it or not." "Enough." Collins exploded, stepping forward. "You think I'm afraid of your threats? You don't know what I've survived." But before he could finish, the second man rushed forward, seizing me by the arm and yanking me to my feet. Fear shot through me, the sense of fragility overwhelming as I faced the unknown. "Let her go!" Collins shouted, reaching for me. "Stay back. You're out of time, Collins. This is a warning. Walk away, forget this foolish notion of rebellion, and maybe we'll let her go." "How can you even say that?" I gasped, looking into the man's ice-cold eyes. "You're willing to put his life on the line simply because you feel threatened? This is madness." "Madness? No, darling. This is business," he replied, a glint of lust for power flickering on his features. "And in business, sacrifices must be made." In that moment, reality pressed heavy upon me, and the world grew colder still. I was more than just an unsuspecting bystander. I stood at the crossroads of a shrouded dilemma, an unwitting participant entwined within an intricate web of control and deceit. Collins lunged at the man, but the grip around my arm tightened, dragging me away from him. "Don't! You can't do this!" I screamed, but my voice felt distant, swallowed by the storm brewing between them. The man smiled cruelly, and I sensed a flicker of chaos stirring beyond the confines of this room. "You should consider this an opportunity. Join us, and you will be safe. Resist, and it may very well be the end for you both." I could hear Collins' breath hitching as he processed the ultimatum, pain flickering across his features. "You think I would ever put you in danger for my own survival?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Suddenly, the front door swung open again, and two more figures appeared. I couldn't focus on their faces, but the determination in their eyes sparked a hope I hadn't realized I was thirsting for. "Let her go!" one of them shouted, and I felt my heart leap in my chest. As chaos erupted, the grip around my arm weakened. For just a heartbeat, and I seized my chance. In one swift motion, I twisted away and threw myself against Collins, seeking his protection. He wrapped his arms around me. It was instinct, a suggestion of safety in a world turned upside down. The room was filled with shouts and scrambling, the air turning electric as lines blurred and secrets began to unravel. This was far from over, the conflicts were only beginning to surface, but as I stood there, held tight in his embrace, I finally understood I wasn't merely a pawn in this game. Then, just as silence fell upon the chaos, a familiar voice echoed through the tumult. "You think you can hide forever, Collins? You've made a powerful enemy." As I lifted my head to meet his gaze, Collins' expression was one of chilling terror mingled with ferocious determination. "They know I'm alive," he whispered. A new wave of dread washed over us, and the taste of fear turned sharp on my tongue. Would we ever know peace again? The storm was only just beginning, and I could feel the tempest closing in as tightly as his arms wrapped around me. The cold air was thick with uncertainty, each breath a struggle as we stood entwined, looking into the abyss of what would come next. In that terrifying moment, the room which had previously pulsed with conflict felt like it was slowly suffocating us. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to fight the dread clawing at my insides. "Collins," I whispered, pulling back just enough to see his face clearly, to search his dark eyes for reassurance or answers. "What do you mean they know you're alive?" His brow furrowed, the tension coiling in his shoulders like a tightly wound spring. "This doesn't end here," he replied, voice taut and low. "I have rendered myself a target, and they will use any means necessary to hunt me down." Yet, beneath that fierce exterior, I sensed something vulnerable, something that spoke of hopelessness carving its way into his heart, and it broke mine further. How had we gotten here, teetering on the edge of danger with no clear path back? Before I could respond, chaos erupted anew. The man who had grabbed me earlier lunged again, spinning on the two new arrivals, his fury igniting. "You should have kept your mouths shut. Now you've made it worse for her." The second new arrival, tall, dark-haired, with an intensity that radiated from him, didn't flinch. "We didn't come for her, we came for you. Enough games." The first assailant growled, and in that moment, I knew instinctively that whatever was happening transcended the simple notion of personal conflict. This was a struggle against a network so vast that a stray whisper could mean ruin. Just as the tension reached a fever pitch, I saw the door behind them swing wide, revealing a figure I had never anticipated. My breath caught in my throat. "David!" I gasped, recognizing Colin's younger brother, the one I'd met once at a charity gala long before this nightmare began. I hardly knew him, yet the relief of seeing a familiar face was intoxicating, as if he embodied a flicker of hope within the chaos swirling around us. "Get away from them!" he yelled, eyes blazing with determination. He charged forward without hesitation, and my heart swelled, caught in the dichotomy of fear and fierce loyalty. "Amy!" David's voice was urgent, cutting through the frenzy. "Are you okay?" I started, but my words were lost in the tumult. Collins gripped me tighter, and I understood that refusing to let go was not just an act of protection, it was an unspoken promise to navigate this storm together, whatever the cost. "Collins, you can't let them take her," David implored, glancing back at the group now poised to strike. "You know that they won't stop until they have what they want." Collins met his brother's gaze. "Then we need to make our move. Now." Before the gravity of his words could sink in, everything erupted into an unrelenting storm. Grappling bodies, shouts of anger, and the echoes of uncertainty transformed this sanctuary into a battleground. I felt adrenaline coursing through me as the instinct for survival ignited, awakening something fierce within my spirit. David grabbed my hand, and in one synchronized motion, we broke toward the exit, dragging Collins behind us. I could feel the tension behind us coil tighter as the men we were fleeing snapped into action, desperate to regain control of the situation. As we barreled outside into the biting cold, the sharp wind tore past my skin, invigorating and shocking all at once. The world around me transformed into a surreal blur, streetlights flickered as if dimmed by the sense of urgency pressing us forward. "Get in the car!" David shouted, his voice unwavering even as we sprinted towards a sleek black sedan waiting at the curb. The engine purred like a beast, its power beckoning us closer. Collins moved with purpose, and somehow that steadied my racing heart. As we ducked into the vehicle, I realized that we weren't just running towards safety, we were also running from something that felt insurmountable, a truth festering beneath the surface of Collins' lives. David turned back to lock eyes with Collins. "We need to disappear for a while." "They know what you've been doing, we have to go off the grid." "I can't go into hiding," Collins said, no hint of hesitation in his voice. "Not with her involved. Can I truly bear the shadows of his world?" I thought, battling a whirlpool of conflicting emotions. Fear for our lives swirled with an unexpected surge of connection. I was burgeoning into something new, stepping out of my mundane rhythms into a reality more powerful than I had ever imagined. Just as the car slipped away into the winter night, I felt a familiar twinge deep in my chest, an instinct warning me that this was just the beginning. We were not truly free, just moving deeper into uncertainty, but as Collins turned to me, a silent understanding passed between us, a reminder that I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I could feel the sweet warmth of hope blossom against the icy chill of despair, even as the world beyond our walls threatened to close in around us. Then, as if heroines and heroes shared the same fateful script, I heard Collins' next words cut through the silence, shrouded in somber realization. Amy, if they find us, there's no going back. I'm not only fighting for my life anymore, I'm fighting for yours, too. Before I could absorb the weight of his proclamation, my phone buzzed violently against the seat. I glanced down. A text from an unknown number glared back at me. Just because you left the game doesn't mean it's done. We'll find you. My heart plummeted. The storm was pulling us deeper, and no one could promise a safe harbor. My fingers trembled as I gripped the phone, the realization settling heavily on my chest like stone, a looming danger just beyond our reach. The world felt as if it were collapsing toward us, darkness beckoning, and I knew in that moment, we were unmatched in our struggle. In the silence that followed the chilling message, the car felt smaller somehow, the shadows pressing in closer, stealing the warmth from the air. Collins' gaze locked onto mine, and I saw a spectrum of emotions twist his features, a storm that mirrored my own. Amy, he began, but David interjected, his voice threaded with urgency. Focus. We need a plan. If they already know where we are, we don't have much time. His grip on the wheel tightened, knuckles whitened with the strain of the weight we bore. Collins glanced at David, reassessing, before turning back to me. We can't panic. We need to think clearly. His tone held an edge that both steadied and alarmed me. Do you have anyone you can trust? Someone who can help us disappear? The question struck deep. My mind raced, navigating through friends, colleagues, acquaintances who among them could truly provide refuge in a time of such urgency. I had built my life on the certainty of routine, yet here I was, teetering on the precipice of chaos. For a second, the familiar warmth of my cozy apartment flashed through my mind, but that life seemed light years away now. I don't know, I stammered, the weight of uncertainty spilling from my lips. But I work with a woman named Sarah. She runs a small retreat upstate. It's off the grid and a retreat? Collins interrupted, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. If it's secluded, it might buy us time. Can we trust her? I nodded, surprised at my own conviction. I think so. She's been through a lot herself, she understands the need to escape. Then we go there, Collins stated, his voice firm, the decision made as if fate had already forged its path before us. As David navigated the car through winding streets, I felt the ferocity of our situation take root, the rhythm of our heartbeats synchronized in a desperate dance against time. The message still flickered in my mind like a neon sign, threatening the fragile hope we tried to hold on to. I could feel Collins' resolve next to me, but the stakes felt impossibly high, and doubt began to munch at the edges of my confidence. Do you think they'll come after us? I asked, threading my fingers in upon themselves as the chill set again in my bones. Collins turned to me, his eyes fierce and unwavering. If they're as relentless as I fear, then yes. But you need to trust that I won't let anything happen to you. I swear it, he promised. Just then, a flicker of light raced across the mirror, both blinding and terrifying. David swerved slightly, muscles taut as he focused. I think someone's following us. Hold on. Adrenaline surged through me, a frantic river drowning out reason. My heart thundered in my ears as David pushed the pedal to the floor. We zipped through intersections like shadows escaping the dark. I pressed myself down in the seat, clinging to both Collins and the thin thread of hope weaving between us, but fear had a particular flavor, sharp and bitter, and I could taste it as it encroached, taking root with every passing moment. The feeling that our pursuers were not merely hunting Collins but were now part of a larger scheme began to gnaw at my senses. Where is the retreat? Collins barked at me, eyes fierce and vigilant. 2 hours from here if we can lose them. I gasped, my breath coming in sharp bursts. David veered left, weaving through traffic, and I caught a glimpse of a dark SUV closing in behind us. The driver's fierce determination to catch us mirrored our own desperation to escape. As David pushed the car harder, it felt like a high-speed ballet, and I wasn't sure we could keep outrunning the storm brewing behind us. "Hold on!" David shouted as we burst onto a lonely stretch of highway, the darkness swallowing us whole. The SUV fell a bit behind but was still closing in, each passing second exuding a sense of impending doom. "Get ready to turn off the highway. The retreat's on the next left," I instructed, feeling my pulse quicken as each moment felt like a ticking clock. Just as David's foot pressed harder against the gas, the faint sound of a pop echoed in the air, followed by the sudden eerie hiss of a tire losing pressure. Time froze, the air thick with anxiety. "The tire!" Collins shouted. "We're losing speed." David fought against the wheel, but the car swayed unsteadily, panic lighting his features. I felt Collins' body tense beside me, our shared fear fused in a palpable current. "Get ready to jump!" David barked, then suddenly swerved hard to the left, gravel spitting up beneath us as we skidded to a stop just at the edge of the rising pines bordering the retreat. All at once, the SUV screeched to a halt behind us, blocking our escape, and the world outside became a painted tableau of dread. The men spilled out, their faces obscured in the darkness, arching toward the open expanse of the forest as predatory shadows. "Now!" Collins shouted, his voice driven by instinct. We threw ourselves out of the car, hearts pounding as we raced toward the sheltering trees, knowing this was not just a fight for survival but an embodiment of everything we once knew being stripped away, leaving only raw fear and determination. But as we dashed deeper into the woods, I stole a glance back, a harrowing thought igniting in my chest. What would happen if they caught us? And then came a new shattering revelation, a flicker of light cutting through the trees, a heavy thud that sent shockwaves through the air. In the distance echoed the sound of a gunshot, and all at once, my heart plummeted into a fathomless pit of despair. What had we unwittingly become a part of, and how much longer could we outrun the shadows of Collins' world before they swallowed us whole? The air was thick with the pungent scent of pine and damp earth, the shadows thickening as we plunged deeper into the thicket, the safety of trees surrounding us like ancient sentinels guarding our desperate escape. My breaths came short and sharp, each inhalation tainted with the remnants of fear, and a steady beat of adrenaline kept my heart anchored in a harsh reality. Collins, ever vigilant at my side, glanced back periodically, his expression a tightening knot of both resolve and dread that we wove through the underbrush, limbs scratching at our clothes, a tapestry of nature consuming us whole. At that moment, my prior worries about retrieving my lost life felt foolish against the tangible fury of the danger that pursued us. The gunshot lingered in my ears like a haunting echo, a stark reminder that we were no longer merely running from the unknown, we were being hunted. "Are you okay?" Collins asked, his voice low yet urgent, pulling my focus from the dark thoughts that loomed. "I'm fine," I breathed, the added thrill of fear igniting something within me. "We just have to keep moving." Just then, a crack of branches startled us, and Collins tightened his grip on my elbow, guiding me through an uncharted path. The oppressive darkness made it hard to discern where we were heading, and the anxiety gnawed at my stomach. I stole moments to think, trying to distance myself from the terror that was only inches away. Each step felt heavy, a weight bearing down on my thoughts like a relentless storm cloud. After what felt like a grueling eternity, we stumbled upon a clearing. Moonlight spilled through the canopy, illuminating a small wooden cabin nestled among the trees, its crude structure holding a rustic charm. Hope flickered within me, a fragile flame in the chaos, as Collins took stock of the scene, scanning the perimeter for danger. "Are we safe?" I whispered, the fragile embers of hope flickering in my chest. "For now, maybe," he replied, his brow furrowing. "But I can't guarantee it will last." Without needing to say more, we hurried to the cabin, the crunch of twigs beneath our feet punctuating the tense silence. As we approached, I could make out details: a rusty old door, windows draped in what once might have been curtains, and an unmistakable stillness that both beckoned and warned. "Stay close," Collins murmured, pushing the door open with a creak that echoed through the woods around us. My heart raced at the thought of adversaries lurking behind every shadow. Inside, the interior felt almost untouched by time. Dust motes danced lazily in the crevice of light sneaking through the cracked window, and a single oil lantern sat on a rickety table, dimly illuminating the decay around us. I shivered not from the cold but from uncertainty, the gnawing sense that every choice we made could lead us closer to a precipice we couldn't see. "We should barricade the door," Collins murmured, moving instinctively toward it as he searched for anything heavy. I turned to help, but my thoughts swirled with the implications of our circumstances, the ongoing shadow of Collins' past looming like a specter before me. "Collins," I hesitated, the words difficult to form amid the weight of the day. "What are we involved in? Why are they after you?" He paused, his features slipping into contemplation before the tension erupted. "I've made mistakes. Things I've tried to leave behind. But I never thought they'd come after you." His voice cracked with an emotion that pulled at my heartstrings, the vulnerability stark against the backdrop of relentless danger. "I trusted you," I said softly, feeling the sting of betrayal settle over us. "And now it feels like everything has spiraled." "Amy," he interjected, bearing the weight of his own fears. "I never wanted this to touch you. You were the light amidst my darkness, and I thought I could keep you safe." Silence slinked back into the room, thick as the underbrush we left behind. It clung to my chest, twisting within me as I wrestled with the truth that stood before us. "But what if this is too much?" I whispered, the words threatening to consume us both. Collins stepped closer, anguish etched into his features. "We fight together. And if there is any part of this that I can shield you from, I will." His voice steadied, yet I could see the shadows of his past rising behind him like a tide. That we paused, two souls adrift amid the chaos, finding a momentary refuge in each other's intensity, yet the reality outside our fragile sanctuary still loomed larger than life. Then, out of nowhere, a sudden knock rang through the cabin walls, piercing our cocoon of safety. We exchanged horrified glances just as the door rattled ominously, the sound morphing into a thunderous thud. The hair on the back of my neck prickled with fear. "They've found us," Collins hissed, his eyes wide with urgency. Without thinking, he lunged toward the window, heart on his sleeve, desperation spilling over. I rushed after him, my heart racing with the fervor of a storm, when a second thud resonated right through the cabin. The door splintered slightly from the force, and the grim realization dawning on us felt like the ground had fallen from beneath our feet. "On the count of 3, he murmured, his grip on the window ledge fierce and determined. "Run." The cyclone of dread that swirled in my heart and mind crashed into an inevitable choice, fight or flight. As the door rattled once more with the undeniable weight of what loomed beyond, I felt the choice slip from my grasp, and the fractured ground disappear beneath me. "Ready?" Collins breathed, his gaze piercing into mine, igniting every flicker of courage still residing within me. "Yes," I whispered, though fear clawed at my resolve. 3 he counted, his voice steady as shafts of moonlight spilled like promises around us, but just as we reached 1, the door burst open with a crashing crescendo, and the world, any semblance of safety we'd clung to, shattered like glass. In that moment, reality ripped apart at the seams, and all that lay ahead was cloaked in uncertainty, marriages of fate colliding with cries of anguish and desperation. The last fragment of hope faded as the impending chaos consumed us whole. The path remained dark, winding forward into the unknown. The cabin trembled beneath the weight of our fear as the door flew wide open, ominously revealing the darkness beyond. I didn't see who stood there, my vision blurred, adrenaline coursing through my veins like a relentless torrent. Colin's body instinctively shifted to shield me, a primal urge igniting in him to protect even at the brink of destruction. "Get behind me!" he barked, his voice booming, laced with the raw authority of someone who had faced down the demons of their past. There was no time for hesitation. I did as instructed, my heart thudding wildly as I crouched low, feeling the coarse wooden floor against my knees, the unstated dread thickening like fog in the air. 2 shadows emerged from the night, their silhouettes sharp against the feeble glow of the lantern. I could discern their features, abrupt angles, taut muscles, they radiated danger, a menacing energy permeating the space we were trapped within. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the two men from a previous encounter, a confrontation I'd hoped was lost to nightmares. Well, if it isn't the renegade and his little sidekick, one of them sneered, a sickly grin stretching across his face. You really thought you could escape us? Get out! Collins roared, his voice a defiant crash against the oppressive silence of the woods beyond. Each word trembled with a fierce longing to reclaim power over our fates. If you value your lives, leave now. I couldn't look away from the figures before us. They were the embodiment of terror, closing in, their advance deliberate as the air thickened with tension. The men's eyes glinted as they surveyed the cramped quarters, taking in our frantic desperation. Save your breath. The second man said coolly, the disdain dripping from his every word. You really think we'd let you walk away? After what you've done? You think this ends here? That you can just woefully run into the woods and pretend the past doesn't exist? Collins' muscles coiled, ready to strike at any given moment, though it was the raw ache in his eyes that drained the last of my courage. I could feel the heat of our collective fear pushing against my chest, stifling the breath from my lungs. My own survival instinct teetered on the brink of despair. In that moment, a shaft of fear coiled tightly around my heart, squeezing until I could barely think. This was no longer just a fight for survival, this was a reckoning, the collision of our worlds coming to a head, laying bare the consequences of Colin's past life that had surprisingly tangled itself with mine. We could make this easy, the first man offered, the edges of cruelty lacing his tone. Just give us Collins. You'll be free to go. No questions asked. I gasped at the suggestion, a wave of disbelief washing over me. I began, but Collins shot me a look. It was a mix of pleading and fierceness. Tell me you wouldn't betray me like that, after everything, he said, his voice imbued with vulnerability, though the threat of violence hovered between us like a charged storm cloud. The second man chuckled darkly. Look at your little strongman, scrambling to save you. It's adorable, he mocked. The sharpness in his eyes seemed to sting, and yet, I felt a flicker of something in me fight back, a tiny ember that defied the consuming darkness. We'll never back down, I heard myself say, words pouring out before my mind had the chance to catch up. Somehow, daring to contest their threat ignited newfound strength within me that surged through the remnants of fear. The forwards motion of the men faltered at my words, surprise flashing across their faces. Collins almost looked shocked but quickly masked it with somber resolve. They'll kill you, he warned softly, the weight of his protectiveness palpable in the space between us. If we go down together, I said, stealing my gaze. I couldn't let them see my fear, couldn't show them the raw vulnerability shaking my resolve. A moment stretched like a taut wire, pulsing with energy, as the intensity of the situation hung heavy over us. Though defeat crouched at the edges of my thoughts, I longed to be more than a victim in this moment. Then, as if on cue, a sound broke the strained silence, a soft but unmistakable rustling outside the cabin, growing louder like a distant rumble of thunder. It was too late to process the shift before powerful figures emerged from the darkness, their silhouettes expanding in the doorway, a collective force fueled by purpose. Boss, we got a lead, one of them shouted, glancing swiftly at me and Collins. They're here, sir. I didn't recognize the new arrivals, but the presence of reinforcements stirred bravado in my heart. Collins' guard shifted, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in the eyes of our pursuers. But the moment didn't last. The first man, enraged, surged forward, launching himself toward Collins, while his companion remained bewildered, perhaps even fearful of what was happening. In that heartbeat, the cabin exploded into chaos. Collins, muscles taut and adrenaline blaring, jumped to intercept. My instincts propelled me forward, my resolve tangled with Collins' deep-seated need to protect me. No! I screamed, but the sound drowned in a cacophony of fists and bodies tumbling through the cramped space. Pain radiated through me as I stumbled back, grappling with the twin notions of fear and resolve. I had come too far to retreat now, yet one haunting thought gripped me. The storm was just beginning, and as the shifting tides of fate took us all by storm, I couldn't shake the realization that everything I had known, the life I called mine, was trembling on the brink of irrevocable change. The storm raged outside, a wild symphony of howling winds and swirling snow that echoed the chaos engulfing the cabin. I stumbled into the corner, clutching at the splintered wood behind me, heart racing as the violence flared before me. The air was thick with adrenaline and fear, mixing with the bitterness of impending loss. Collins, thrown off balance, wrestled with one of our attackers, the two bodies colliding with the wooden walls, sending moth-eaten pictures of long-forgotten memories crashing to the ground. My breath caught in my throat, panic clawing at my insides. I did not want to believe this was how it would end, consumed by the brutality of men embroiled in a past I barely understood. "Stay down!" Collins shouted, rage lacing through him. His eyes were fierce, relentless, but I saw something deeper simmering beneath a well of pain that made my heart ache for him. I understood now. This was not just about protecting me, it was about confronting the demons of his past, a reckoning that had finally arrived at our doorstep. As I watched, a mix of horror and admiration flooded through me. He was fighting for both our lives, but the burden of his pain felt like an anchor dragging him deeper into despair. And yet, as I blinked through the whirlwind, a chill ran down my spine, urging me into action. I could not let him carry this weight alone. With frantic resolve, I found the old metal stool tucked into a corner. I could hardly feel my fingers as I gripped it tightly. The intruders were too focused on Collins, giving me a brief moment of courage. I steeled my breath, positioning myself to intervene. "Hey! Let him go!" I shouted, my voice breaking but fierce, echoing like a warning in the storm. One of the men turned, his sneer faltering as he glanced at me, momentarily distracted. It was all the opening I needed. I hurled the stool straight at him, its arc underlined by desperation. It struck him square on the leg. He cursed, his aggressive demeanor shifting for just a heartbeat. Collins seized that moment, knocking his opponent's arm aside and landing a solid punch to the man's jaw, sending him sprawling back, but the violence didn't have the effect I'd hoped for. The second man was already on the offensive, lunging toward Collins. "Get out of here!" Collins bellowed again, his voice breaking through the chaos as he struggled. He was wearing down, each blow met with another, and I could feel the frustration simmering within me. Why did it have to be like this? Just as I maneuvered to help Collins, the door swung wider, and another figure burst inside, shivering yet determined. My heart fluttered in disbelief. It was Sarah, my best friend. "I heard your screams. I was so worried," she gasped, panting as she took in the pandemonium. "Sarah, what are you doing?" I shouted, racing to her as the chaos continued. Her courage flared in the midst, a light against the darkness closing in. It was the warmth of friendship igniting hope, a small glimmer amidst the storm. "I'm here to help," she retorted, rushing for the nearest intruder who regained his footing. She swung at him with a wild abandon that only friendship could afford, but it distracted him enough for Collins to land another hit. Yet, just as relief washed over me, the other man seemingly undeterred pushed past Collins with an animalistic growl, darting toward Sarah. "You should have stayed out of this," he snarled, and a deep chill gripped my chest. "Sarah!" I screamed. It felt as if time slowed. The man's hand reached for her, a silhouette cast against the dust of the cabin illuminated by the lantern's flickering light. Adrenaline propelled me forward, propelling my body as if on instinct, but my legs felt heavy, and then, suddenly, out of nowhere, came a thick dark blur. The remaining figure, a part of Collins' crew, emerged to intercept the attack on Sarah, grabbing the man's arm and wrenching him back. In the ruckus, chaos erupted anew, reminding me that the storm outside was still raging, wild and relentless. "Get her to safety!" Collins roared as he punched hard, grappling for dominance while still shielding me from the fray. But I could see where the struggle was taking a toll on him. Each movement looked more labored, shadows carving deep lines around his weary eyes. "I can't just leave you," I shouted back, my own resolve mingling in his fierce resolve. My heart pounded. The threads of our lives had woven tightly together, yet the uncertainty lingered, trepidation danced upon the precipice of impending tragedy. Just when the hope surged amid the chaos, a sudden detonation echoed an explosion from the distant forest, shaking the very foundations of the cabin. The ground trembled, dust and debris raining down upon us. Collins! I gasped, pulling at his arm as he looked up, eyes wide with shock, and in that moment, everything shifted. The intruders faltered, exchanging glances before retreating into the darkness, fear flickering in their eyes for the first time. They made a hasty retreat, and as the moment of potential victory surged through me, I realized they weren't just retreating from us. They were fleeing from something much larger, something we hadn't yet seen, but in our victory, amidst the cacophony of chaos and uncertainty, Collins' face twisted in horror as he realized the danger was far from over. "Stay close," he urged urgently, grabbing my hand. The air thick with confusion, the debris still settling, and just away from the cabin, the echoes of the explosion reverberated in my ears like a distant warning. Something was out there, ominous and waiting our safety, just an illusion veiled by the snowstorm. As we edged back to the door, hearts pounding wildly, that fateful realization loomed heavy. Whatever had come for Collins in the night had not yet shown its true face. The trees loomed around us, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers against the pale sky. As we stepped outside the cabin, my breath caught in my throat, and a deep shiver ran through me, not entirely from the cold. The world felt transformed, darker, as if the storm had been but a prelude to the chaos lying just beyond our hastily constructed sanctuary. Collins kept hold of my hand, a fierce grip that tethered me to his resolve, and together, we pressed into the snow, each step more deliberate than the last. A weight settled in my chest, foreboding and heavy, whispering of the dangers that still lingered just beneath the surface. "Where do we go now?" I asked, glancing up at him. His jaw was set in determination, yet the flicker of fear in his eyes mirrored my own. The explosion had rattled something deep within him, awakened a beast that could no longer be contained. "There's a path through the woods that leads to the other side of the property," he said, glancing over his shoulder, filled with urgency. "If we can make it there, we might find shelter until daylight." It was a desperate hope, but the flickering glimmers of hope we clung to felt tenuous at best. That we navigated the narrowing path, the snow crunching beneath our boots as we rushed deeper into the woods. Each rustle, each snap of a twig sent adrenaline rushing through my veins. The storm continued to howl, a chilling reminder that we were never alone anymore. "Amy," Collins said while keeping his voice low, "when this is over, we'll ensure you're safe. I promise." The sincerity in his gaze made my heart race, but the uncertainty of our futures loomed like a shadow, unshakable yet insistent. And then, just as the world around us began to quiet, the realization swept over me: the shadows of Collins' past had become an inescapable part of my present. There was no turning back now, we were both intertwined in something far greater. Suddenly, through the thick curtain of snowflakes, I spotted a flicker of movement, dark figures breaking through the trees, closing in on us. My heart plummeted, a visceral ache of dread coursing through my veins. The storm howled louder, echoing my rising fear. "Run!" Collins shouted, his grip tightening around my hand as we took off through the underbrush. Fear propelled us forward like a fast-moving current, the pounding of our hearts syncing with the chaotic rhythm of the world around us. We dashed through the frozen landscape, the whipping wind blurring our path, but Collins' unwavering focus led us deeper into the woods, where the trees closed in around us like guardians. I could feel shadows trailing behind us, a relentless hunger powered by his enemies, each desperate footfall an echo of the danger lurking close behind. With every ounce of strength, I pushed forward, my mind racing with thoughts of safety and reprieve. Yet, a sudden gunshot rang through the air, a sharp report that sliced the stormy veil like a dagger, and panic exploded in my chest. Collins pulled me closer, but instinctively, I knew who was aiming for us. "Over there!" he shouted, pointing toward a small clearing just ahead. My heart surged with hope, yet the fear of capture tightened around my throat. Collins must have recognized the flicker of uncertainty in my eyes, for he tightened his grip and led me into the clearing, where the cover of branches and thick foliage provided us with a momentary reprieve. Keep low, he instructed, his voice barely above a whisper. We crouched behind the gnarled roots of an ancient oak, the tumult of breath filling the space between us as we pressed into the cold earth, ears straining against the silence now enveloping us. Peering cautiously through the branches, I caught a glimpse of the figures closing in, their voices muffled but filled with a tense urgency that sent chills racing down my spine. They combed the area, searching for any sign of us, but we were silent shadows in their midst, desperate to remain unseen. As we crouched there, my heart thudded wildly against the backdrop of the storm. Collins pressed his shoulder tightly against mine, comfort settling over me like a warm blanket amid the chill of uncertainty. "I won't let them take you," he murmured, eyes reflecting determination against the icy backdrop. But the moment felt fragile, teetering on the edge of both hope and despair. Suddenly, I felt something shift in the air, a burden lifting, twisting as I shifted closer to him, letting the warmth of his presence envelop me. The looming threat pressed on our shoulders like a storm cloud, yet I breathed in deeply, steadying myself. Breaking the silence, I spoke softly, "Collins, whatever happens, I'm not afraid of facing it. Not with you." I turned to meet his gaze, letting the gravity of my words settle between us. In that moment, I saw the flicker of vulnerability splashed across his countenance. I didn't know if it was mirroring my own fear, but it dissolved something within me, allowing courage to blossom, a bond forged in the heart of a frozen tempest. As we crouched in the shadows, poised between fear and resolve, I felt the veils that once kept our worlds apart slip away. Through the echoes of the storm, a whispered truth emerged: we might just be stronger together, our connection igniting a spark capable of dispelling even the darkest fears. Then, just as the tension reached a breaking point, I heard a distant voice rising above the wind, our pursuers, their efforts growing frantic, but it was the glimmer of something new that caught my attention. I turned to Collins, whose stare held a blend of determination and a growing fierceness. "We need to make a stand," he declared fiercely, his voice steady, yet a hint of hesitation lingered in the corners of his resolve. "Together?" I replied, the warmth coursing through me igniting a flame of defiance. "Always," he stated with unyielding certainty before rising to his feet, a brooding figure against the endless white backdrop. He took my hand, a lifeline that connected us deeper than the storm, as if we could weather anything together. As we emerged from behind the oak, the wind whipped around us, and the figures turned to face us with rage etched across their features. We stood side by side, shoulders squared, the echoes of our heartbeats sinking with purpose, prepared to confront whatever awaited us in the eye of the storm. "Make your move," Collins challenged, a fierce glow in his eyes. If there was one thing I now understood, it was that we were more than just pawns in a game. With a slow, deliberate movement, I raised my chin, gathering every ounce of courage to face the battlefield ahead. As the storm raged on around us and their hardened expressions shifted into amusement, I could see the flicker of both fear and admiration spark within them. And suddenly, I felt something greater swell inside, hope ignited by the formidable alliance forged through a shared journey. It was in that moment, against the backdrop of chaos, that the tides truly turned, no longer waiting for a story to unfold, but writing our own narrative, one that would be fueled by resilience, defiance, and above all, love. Hand in hand, we stepped forward into the tempest with strength, ready to fight against the shadows that loomed ever closer, determined to carve our own path through the storm.